Do you know the story of a queen contest that King Xerxes promoted? So come with me. Let's open the great book. This is Xerxes. He was the king over 27 provinces from India to Ethiopia. His throne was in the small city of Susa, and he was very rich. In a certain occasion, King Xerxes decided to promote a contest to choose a queen for himself. All single women in the kingdom were invited, and the king's counselors chose the most beautiful ones to go to Susa to spend some time there receiving beauty treatment in one of the king's houses. At the end of the contest, the king would choose the one he liked the most to be his queen. In those times, a Jew called Mordecai, a descendant of Benjamin who lived in Susa, had a cousin called Hadassah, who he had raised as a daughter because her parents had died. Hadassah, also called Esther, was a beautiful young lady. When the decree was taken about the contest, Esther was chosen to participate and to be taken to one of the king's houses with all the other chosen ladies for the beauty treatment. But before she left, Esther received an advice from her cousin Mordecai. Esther, don't tell anyone in the palace about your origin. It's better if nobody knows you are Jewish. When she arrived at the king's house for the contest, Esther was noteworthy among the ladies because of her exceptional beauty. So she was separated with 6 other ladies to go to a better place in the house. And just like Mordecai had advised, she didn't tell anyone about her family origin. And every day, Mordecai walked around the palace to check if Esther was okay. The beauty treatment lasted for 12 months, and then the time to be presented to the king had come. After the presentation, the ladies would be taken to another house in the palace, and they wouldn't be able to see the king anymore unless they were formally invited. And it was Esther's turn. When she came in the presence of the king, he liked her better than any other lady that had been presented. And the unexpected happened. Esther was crowned queen. The king was so happy with his new queen that he offered a feast for his noblemen and officials, and he also decreed a holiday in all provinces in his kingdom and gave people lots of presents because he was a generous king. After the party, the king returned to his work, and there came the day to promote Haman, one of his best officials, to a higher position. During the ceremony, the king ordered everyone to bow down before Haman, but Mordecai refused to bow. When one of the king's officials questioned him, he said he was a Jew and he would bow down only before God. And this made Haman very irritated, and he started a conspiracy against Mordecai. Haman knew Mordecai's origin, so he thought it was not enough to get rid of him alone. He would have to destroy his whole people. Hey, wait a moment. Mordecai's people was Esther's people too. And now what? Let's see what happened. So Haman went out to talk to King Xerxes, saying, King Xerxes, there is a people called Jew that live in our provinces, and they have a different culture. So they don't obey the king's decrees. I think that the king should not tolerate their disobedience. So, the best thing to do is to destroy all these people. As king liked Haman pretty much and trusted him, he gave him all authority to decide what to do with the Jews that lived in his kingdom by giving him his own royal seal ring that was used to sign any document in king's name. With the ring in his hand, Haman wrote letters signed in the name of the king and sent them to all provinces with an order to completely destroy all the Jews. When Mordecai heard about the new decree, he was in anguish and cried a lot. Also, all the Jews in all provinces felt the same. Loud sounds of the crying people could be heard. When Esther heard that Mordecai and her people were in anguish, she got really worried and asked one of her servants to find out what was happening. When he talked to Mordecai, he gave the servant a copy of the decree to be taken to Esther, so that she could ask the king to cancel it. When Esther read the decree and heard about her cousin's request, she sent him another message. Mordecai, there is a law here in the palace that says that anyone who goes to the presence of the king without being invited will be dead, unless the king raises his scepter and spares this person's life. It's been 30 days since the king last called me. When Mordecai received Esther's message, he replied, Esther, you are part of the people that the king wants to destroy. God is going to help us anyway. If it's not through you, it'll be some other way. Our help is certainly coming from God, but think twice. Maybe that's why God put you in the position of queen. And Esther replied to him like this: Gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. For 3 days and 3 nights, don't eat or drink anything. My servants and I will do the same, and then I will go to the king's room, even knowing that it's against the law. If I have to die, I will. And Mordecai did as Esther asked. 3 days later, Esther got dressed with her royal clothes and went to the throne room where the king was and stood by the door. How courageous! Esther risked her own life to try to save her people from destruction. What a huge faith! Is the king going to raise his scepter and spare her life? Let's see what happened. Esther courageously got into the presence of the king for a special urgent request. The king looked at the door and saw her. When he noticed that it was Esther, he raised his scepter. What a relief! Esther's life was spared. But it was not over yet. She had a challenging request for the king. So she said, I will offer a feast to the king and to Haman. I would like you both to accept my invitation. Immediately the king asked a servant to call Haman and ask her, What is your desire? I will do whatever you want. Even if you ask for half of my kingdom, I will give it to you. Ask me anything. And she answered, Come with Haman to my feast, and I will tell you my desire. Haman was so excited about Esther's invitation for a feast, but on his way home, he passed by some servants, and Mordecai was the only one who hadn't bowed down to him. That made him so irritated. He thought, I can't wait to destroy these Jews. And he prepared a gibbet specially for Mordecai because he wished for revenge. Haman's heart was full of bad feelings. He was so far away from God. That night, the king couldn't sleep, so he asked one of his servants to read the book of Chronicles, where they registered everything that happened in his kingdom. And the king heard that in certain occasion Mordecai had reported that 2 officials were planning to kill the king. So Xerxes asked his servant, Do you know which honor we gave to this Mordecai for having saved my life? And he answered, We gave no honor to him, my lord. So the king asked about who was in the court, and they said it was Haman. So the king called him and asked, Haman, what honor do you think is appropriate for a person who the king cares a lot about? Haman thought the king was about to honor him, so he gave him an excellent answer. "Oh, I think that he should receive the king's robe and ride the king's horse and take the king's crest on his head. And also the princes and the noblemen should walk him around town, saying that he is worthy of honor before the king." And the king said, "That's a great suggestion, Haman. Do it for me. Take my robe, my horse, and call the princes and noblemen, because I will honor Mordecai." What? Haman must have been disconcerted. Can you imagine that? All the honor he desired for himself, he would have to give to the man he despised the most. What an amazing turnaround! And the time for Esther's feast had arrived. Haman was taken to participate. When they were by the table, the king asked Esther again, "What is your desire? I will do whatever you want. Even if you ask for half of my kingdom, I will give it to you. Ask me anything." And Esther made her request. "I ask the king to spare my life and also my people. We were sentenced to death. If we had been sentenced to be slaves, I would not be bothering the king with my request. I would have remained in silence. But through such affliction like this, I had to ask the king." So Xerxes asked Esther, "But who is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" And Esther answered, "This adversary enemy is Haman." The king was furious, and Haman was so scared that he begged Esther to spare his life. That was when one of the king's servants said that Haman had prepared a gibbet for Mordecai in his own house. So the king ordered them to execute him in it. This way, Haman died in the gibbet that he had prepared for Mordecai. And then the king cooled down and gave Esther all Haman's belongings. After knowing that Mordecai was her relative, the king gave him his seal ring and promoted him to a higher position in the palace. After that, the king canceled all the letters that Haman had sent to the provinces and that decreed death to all the Jews, and also gave them the right to gather and worship their God. This way, Mordecai established Purim celebration for them to feast and celebrate the great deliverance that God had given them. What a story, huh? It's impressive the way that God always has control in his hands. He is sovereign. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. Amen. Did you have fun? So press the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. See you soon. Bye!